Hi guys, Jim here from Dr. Tankenstein in the monochrome man cave. Bit of a change of scenery today, very black and white in here, because today I'm going to talk you through a kegerator build. Now, a few months ago I made this bad boy out of a larder fridge, just a regular sort of tall fridge. I managed to pick up on Gumtree, I think it was. And a friend of mine asked me if I documented it, if he could see the video of me making this anywhere, to which I said no, because it was January and it was way too cold for me to bother with the camera. But I do love beer, I do love kegging, and I do love drinking. So I've been out and grabbed this thing off Facebook Marketplace. I'm going to show you guys how to turn this into a kegerator. Now, first off, why would you want to use a fridge rather than a freezer? You know, the popular kind of tool, I guess, to make a kegerator out of is a kind of a chest freezer, you know, maybe this tall, boxy looking thing. They both have their merits. So the freezer and the fridge both have their merits. The freezer, if I'm honest, is much easier to get kegs in and out of. If I can show you my kegerator here, looks fine, you know, lots of space in there. But if I want to get to the back keg, I have to take the front kegs out. And that's not the case if I was to use a freezer, because I could just lift them out to the top. However, the advantages of using a fridge are you don't need an external temperature regulator, like an Inkbird or something, because the fridge is never going to get cold enough to freeze your beer. You don't need to build a sleeve to go around the top of it like you do with many freezer builds, because by and large the doors of a fridge don't have any coolant tubes in them or electricity, so you can just drill straight through them, no problems. The other major advantage of using a fridge over a freezer, I think, is that your beer is kind of at beer height. You know, you don't have, I mean, I'm a tall drink of water, so I may have to lean down a little bit, but with a chest freezer, I might be dispensing my beer sort of down here. So I much prefer the height that a larder fridge or a fridge gives you over a chest freezer. That's my argument. So today I'm going to talk you through the considerations you need to take into account when building your kegerator, some of the tools you might need, and the equipment that you're going to need to invest in. So let's do this. First off, I'm going to talk you through some of the tools that you're going to need to have to hand just to literally do the building. Now, before I go into any details whatsoever about what to do with this fridge, or this fridge rather, let me just issue a bit of a disclaimer. I'm not a refrigerator mechanic. I certainly don't know your refrigerator. So A, don't ask me about your personal fridge. B, don't take everything I say at face value. Please give your fridge a Google to see whether some of the bits that I'm going to drill through on my fridge have coolant lines on your fridge that could make a bit of a mess. And C, do take care when using power tools. I mean, we're not using anything major here, but we are going to be using sharp knives, sharp drill bits, and fast moving drill parts. Disclaimer out of the way. Let's get some tools. Now, that's actually pretty basic, the stuff that you need, to be honest. You're going to need a well-charged drill, you know, just a regular cordless one will do. If you have a cordless one, you might be in better company there. You're going to need a couple of drill bits of various sizes. You know, we're going to be dealing with various widths of tube here to go through the doors. So a couple of thickies and a nice thin one. The drill bits I'm going to use today are actually designed for wood. You see, they have this kind of point at the end. These are sort of wood drill bits. When I was doing this guy, I found that these were the best ones to use because they have this point on it. it's very easy to forget that the casing of a fridge is actually made out of metal and it's pretty robust. So you sort of need to stab through it a little bit, but you'll get to it. We'll get to that later. I have these as well. These come very in handy. Like I said, a couple of different sizes of drill bit is good. If you can get yourself some of these, I guess this is almost like a hole expander. So you know, you drill a small hole with this and sort of just make it bigger. You know, it's kind of a pyramid type thing. So they're pretty useful, but also they're quite strong as well. These ones that I get, I think I got these from Lidl for like £2. They're very strong. They can drill through metal very easily. You're gonna need a hole saw. A hole saw is a term I learned and kind of feel like I use it every day since. It's basically a drill bit that allows you to physically cut a hole in something. So not just punch a hole in it, but actually carve out a hole. This one is made to go through metal and it's a 23mm diameter. I don't know what that is in inches. I guess it's what, like 9/10 of an inch if you want to do that kind of calculation. They're very useful in everyday life and they're definitely not expensive. This is something that I think is useful. I'll get to why later. This is almost like a current tester. So, you know, it's got this little LED light in it. If it starts to conduct electricity, it'll let you know. Good sharp Stanley knife or angle grinder, which is, I use that to kind of cut away some of the plastic on this. So at the bottom here, I had to kind of cut away some of the body of the fridge. So a good sharp Stanley knife will do the trick. If you got something a bit more powerful that you feel safe using, it's definitely going to make the job a lot easier. Screwdriver, always have a screwdriver to hand. You may or may not need a couple of wrenches. Certainly to install your gas, you're going to need at least a wrench. We'll get to why you may or may not need one later. And then just while we're in sort of the hardware store, just a few of the things you might want to grab hold of. Just a few nuts and bolts, nice and thin. We're dealing here with a fridge, so if you want to stick something to the side of a fridge, you're either going to use kind of this all-purpose glue that I've got, or for something a bit more robust, you're going to want to punch straight through the fridge and tighten the bolt on it. So a couple of nice small nuts and bolts there will do you really, really well. Now we're on to the fun part, the equipment. Now, a couple of notes on equipment before I dive into the list is, this might seem daunting, but you can collect this stuff over time. Obviously, a couple of the pieces of equipment are kegs and a gas canister. I got my hands on some kegs and a gas canister and even some taps that just clip right onto the kegs way before I ever had a kegerator. So you kind of crew this stuff over time because it can get quite expensive. Speaking of cost, this is just my plea. If you do have a local shop where you can buy this stuff from, please do. This is going to sound hypocritical, but my local homebrew shop is very good for ingredients, but not so much on the dispense side. So a lot of the stuff I got today is from Amazon. So I'll put the links for those down below. Like I say, if you can shop local, please do. Okay, so we covered kegs, gas canister, carbon dioxide regulator, not a nitrogen or air regulator. It has to be carbon dioxide, and obviously the fridge. Fridge is probably weirdly the cheapest part of this. Okay, so after that, I would say taps. You need some taps. Now, typically the taps for this that you need are taps with a shank. All the taps I bought for this keg came separately, like I said, so they're kind of three components. So one is the actual main tap body. You'll often just find that on its own. I mean, these can range anywhere from 20 to 50 quid. Tap handles, usually sold separately, just because you can customize these. You can buy cool ones with like chalkboard on them. You can buy just these, I actually quite like these sort of round looking ones. Or you can buy like the longer ones. And a shank. Now, you obviously don't need a shank if you're not making a kegerator. If you just plug in a tap right into the top of your keg there, you don't need a shank. But for this little build, we do. The connections are pretty universal. Like I say, I bought all the shanks and the taps there completely separately, and they all fit perfectly. I got an absolute steal on these. This whole assembly was 30 quid from Amazon. Like I say, I will put the link up for that. I have no idea how they're going to perform yet though, so please bear that in mind. Maybe I'll write that down in the notes. Second kind of big piece of kit that you're going to need for this is a gas manifold. I think that these basically do what they say on the tin. They all seem pretty good. Now, these are obviously directional. Gases goes in one way and doesn't go out the other, you know, the other way is sealed. So depending on which side you're going to put your gas on the fridge, you may need those wrenches I talked about earlier just to switch the side over for which side is your gas in compared to your stop valve at the end there. You're going to need a couple of disconnects. So you're going to need a black disconnect for liquid and a grey disconnect for gas for each keg that you buy. Again, these kind of range in price. Luckily these were cheap because I just broken that one. These range in price, they range in functionality. I mean, these ones that I got, the spindle kind of screws off there. I don't really know what that's for. Again, this was an Amazon buy for me. These were, I think these were about £2.50 each, something like that. Don't quote me on it just yet. You're gonna need tubing. Lots of tubing. So I'm gonna sort of I'm not gonna use all of this, but I'm definitely gonna sample all of this tubing. So you need gas safe tubing, so that isn't porous to gas. You need 3/16 tube for the bulk of the length of the serving tube, and you need as a 5/8 of an inch tubing. I have no idea with all these 1/8 of inches. I'll write the proper measurements at the bottom. But basically, what you're going to do with this is you're going to go a big tube leading out of the keg, feeding into a smaller tube, and then that will then turn into a bigger tube at the end for your dispense. And to connect all these tubes together, you're going to need some John Guest fittings. These things are really cool, and they're a really good, efficient and safe way to connect liquid tubing together. Really love them. It's a real cool design. I'll explain more about how these work later on. And just while we're at it, just to get the most bang for your buck out of your gas, I have a splitter here. So currently on my gas, I have this two-way splitter so that I can feed my kegerator and have a separate gas line out if I want to pressurize any kegs or anything like that separately. So now I'm just going to split it 3 ways and have one kegerator, two kegerator, and then a third line for my external gas use. So that's basically all the equipment. Let's dive into the fridge and get drilling. Right, so before we get really drilling in there, I've just done a bit of measuring up and drilled a couple of pilot holes because, let's be honest, that's not really exciting. So I'm going to do 4 tap holes on this. I'm only actually going to put 3 kegs in here, but I'm going to do 4 tap holes because I've got a bottle filler that's mountable. I use the eye tap to fill bottles. It's very good. So if any of you out there are looking for a bottle filler, use the eye tap. So I've drilled 3 pilot holes. I am going gas out with this. Like I said earlier, my gas tank is currently an external one. I think that's better. Obviously, you can fit more kegs in your kegerator if you leave the gas out. If you put the gas in, it means you've got to drill 1 less hole. So, you know, weigh that up. If you only have 3 kegs, then obviously you might just want to put the gas in. Equally, you can always take the gas out at a later date. So I've measured up for my manifold to be inside, and I've measured up a hole to put the gas through. Just one thing I will point out, I've drilled these little pilot holes straight through the door here using my drill bit. Like I said, I use this wooden drill bit because it's got a little spike on it. If you can look at this here where I've actually drilled the holes, you can see sort of how tough this fridge exterior is. It's only actually put this like little, almost like a little nipple looking thing on the front of it, even though I've really stabbed at it. So what I need to do now is go back over it with this kind of hole extender. Like I said earlier, it's quite tough, quite sharp, and it works a treat. So I'll just open those up. There you have it. I'll definitely cut the sound off for that one so you can't hear me panting. So you see, even with that kind of hole extender, it's still very tough to drill in there through this tough outer layer. Like I say, most fridges don't have any coolant lines in here. You can see that because the door, you can physically take the door off without having to disconnect anything. So that's kind of a telltale sign. Most fridges also don't have any coolant lines in the sides either. Now the side is still metal, so that is also going to be tough to drill through. But most of them don't have any coolant lines in there either. I'll show you how I've measured up the inside. See here, I'm going to put my manifold here. The manifold has to be above the tallest keg, so that the gas lines aren't sort of bent. You can bend them, of course, but the more kinks you have in your gas line, the more likely it is to perish. So I like to just have the manifold right above the keg so that the gas is just pointing downwards and that you can get a nice smooth flow. Now the way I'm going to drill through the side of this is very similar to the first one. Now, I don't know if there are any coolant lines in the shell of this. So what I'm going to do to figure it out is to first drill a very small hole just through the plastic. Plastic you drill through no problem. I'll then poke around in there with this. Very slow. The key to this is slow and steady, because if you do hit one of those coolant lines, it can be quite dangerous. You know, spit out kind of ammonia-like gases. Using this, if you do hit any metal, the LED might just give a little signal. So that's why I'm going to do that. Basically, I'm just going to drill all these holes, speed through it, and you can see my technique. Ask me about it if you want. Okay, so that's my manifold is now nicely bolted on. If you have a look in here, you know, you can really abuse that, really, and it's not going to go anywhere. Like I say, if you did just want to use no more nails, stick that on there, or another branded all-purpose solvent. Stick that on there without drilling through. Obviously, that would probably work too. You might have to redo it at some point with it being, with the environment in there, you know, being cold. It might get brittle. Especially if you're going gas in. If you're going gas in, you might just want to use the non-branded commercial industrial solvent and not have to drill through. But I've obviously done that now. I've drilled through for my manifold, and I've got the hole at the back there for the gas line to come in. Like I say, the idea with this drilling through the sides is to go very, very slowly and just prod around in there with that current tester. After you're done, maybe really jam at the edge with that wood drill bit, and then use the old hole extender bit to widen those holes so you can get your nuts through, your bolts through rather. Right, so that's that done. Now I'm going to get my hole saw. Like I say, this is just a drill bit that allows you to cut a hole, a nice neat hole. I'm going to use these guide holes that I've made in the front to drill through. Obviously that's now a nice straight through line. The hole saw probably won't take out all this fluffy insulation that's on the inside. I might have to do that by hand, or, you know, maybe have a few goes at it. But what it will do is create a real nice circular hole on the front. Yes, if I just take a second now, then this is kind of what you're left with at the end. You see it just cuts a real perfect circle in it, and cutting the circles in this way, like I say, through this real tough metal shell of the fridge is so much easier than using that hole extender. So I'm just going to clean this up and then we'll talk a bit about tubing. Okay, so we got gas in, we got taps on. I got my cool iTap bottle filler on there, and I got 3 kegs in here too. Probably all in all that drill, the actual conversion, it's probably taken me 25 minutes to half an hour. Buying the stuff probably took longer than the actual conversion, to be honest. What has taken a long time is the tubing, and as you probably saw then, it's far from finished. Tubing is something that you really got to get right. Once your kegerator is all up and running, the tubing is going to make or break it. So I went into it a little bit before. I'll just give you a little demonstration because it's kind of trial and error. So what you want is some of this. You're going to have these disconnects. Like I said, I've gone for ball lock. Basically, just give them a little squeeze, stick them on your keg, on the posts. Black for liquid, grey for gas. You're going to put some, I've gone for 5/16 of an inch tubing here. I don't know why everything's in inches. Millimeters would be much easier, I think, for myself. So I've gone for 5/16 straight off the disconnect. My beer line, however, is 3/16 of an inch, so a little bit smaller. Now, you do need the beer line to be as small of a bore as you can find, basically. So this 3/16 of an inch is very, very small bore. The reason for this is it keeps the carbonation in your beer. If your beer line is too broad, I guess, too wide of a bore, the beer's just going to gush out. Equally, if it's not long enough, the beer is also just going to shoot straight out the keg into your gas. It needs that little bit of time to kind of lose a bit of pressure, I guess. So this is just a little offcut I've got just to display really what you're going to do with the tubing. The actual tubing that I'm going to use is going to be about 8 feet long. I've got 15 psi coming from my gas. My tubing is going to be about 8 feet long. With this keg, I started with 10. I got the tubing set exactly where I wanted it to be, and then I needed to cut 2 feet off. So for this one, I've gone straight for 8 feet. You do need an awful lot of tubing, but the good thing is it's very cheap. If you're in the UK and you're a brewer, you'll know about the Malt Miller website. I got this from all this tubing from the Malt Mill, like I say, 5/16 and 3/16. So how you connect these is with, like I say, with these John Guest fittings. Now what John Guest is, it's this kind of technology where it allows you to simply plug the tube in, and then it will not come off. The way you get it off is to push on the little grey bit and it comes off. Like a bit like a Chinese finger trap, I guess. If you pull it, it's not going anywhere. You need to kind of ease it off gently and pull it. So like I said, I've got 5/16 going in, 3/16 coming out. And on the other side, I've got my 3/16 going in. And then I just need another little piece of 5/16 on the end there. And that's going to connect to my my shank that goes straight through the door. You just got these little barbs on the end. Getting the tubing onto the barbs is tricky. Like I say, getting the tubing onto the barbs has already taken me much longer than the actual Kegerator conversion did. So it's definitely worth investing some time into doing a little bit of research. I use a website called Brewer's Friend, I think, who have a gas calculator on there. Well, it both is and isn't an exact science, so there is a little bit of trial and error needed here. A couple of tips for you when it comes to the organisation of this. Do yourself a favour and either get a few different coloured markers or get yourself some insulation tape and just put it along the beer line, basically. Like I say, this stuff's so long that you can lose track of which one's which. So you see here, I've just got one line plugged in here and it's the red line, so I've just got these little red stripes going all throughout the line there, and that just helps you keep track of, you know, which keg am I actually connecting here. When it comes to tidying the kegs, you know, once you've got your line is set and you know how long it's going to be, get some cable ties, tie them all together, and I like to use this stuff, which is going to be too long for me to pull out now. This kind of D-line stuff, it's reasonably cheap. Basically, it's designed to keep wires tidy, you know, in living rooms and stuff. So you just put your tubes in that, seal it up, and use the sticky back there. I've had that in there and it hasn't come off yet, so it's pretty sturdy stuff. Another little tip for you when it comes to tubing, what I won't do this time round, and I won't do when I replace the tubing on this, is run the tubing along the back of the fridge. Like I said, most of the coolant lines for the fridge are at the back. The tubing is such a fine bore that it doesn't matter if you've got a double IPA in there, it is liable to freeze. So be careful. Maybe wrap it in a bit of cotton wool inside your D-line. Got your nice insulation tape with your cable ties on it. You're away. Right guys, so that's it. That's my Kegerator conversion. I'm going to pull off my first beer now. You'll see, and you'll know that it's the first because it's probably going to gush out like crazy. Not bad. A little bit overcarbonated, but that's not the fault of the Kegerator. I think what's happened here is it's probably a little bit too warm. And I said that I was gonna write a review of the tap. That action's lovely. It's kind of spring loaded. So yeah, pretty impressed with that. I've got myself some beer. I've got myself some trial and error to do with the tubing, obviously. But yeah, let me know what you think, guys. Let me know if you're taking the plunge. As I say, a little bit of reading, a little bit of shopping around. You get yourself a Kegerator for probably less than 200 quid. I don't know. In the meantime, guys, like the video, subscribe, leave a comment. I always love hearing from you. Cheers, guys. Happy brewing.